Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Corsair HG10 A1. Now I will say right from the very get-go, just so that people don't tune out, that this one is designed for the reference 290X, but don't fret, there are going to be other models available for things like the 780 Ti, the 780, 980, so on and so forth. This is just the first one that is coming through. And as I explain why, you'll see why they're specific rather than universal like some of the other ones, which does actually make them much better in the long run. But anyway, so what we will do is we'll get the box open. And we've got our manual, which I have just read. We've got our bag of screws. This is the top to the cooler, which we will see getting fitted in a minute. And the reason why I'm rushing it, so I can get to this bit so that I can explain why it's not universal. Essentially, this is the plate to mount it to your graphics card. Now, this is made for the 290 and 290X reference PCBs, and what it actually does is you mount the standard blower fan onto this part of the card. Now, you may think, if it's got a standard blower fan on it, then it's still going to be as loud, but the thing is because we're going to be mounting one of the hydro coolers to it, because they do support any of the Corsair hydro range. You can mount your hydro cooler to it just like your normal CPU cooler. But where all the graphics card heat, which is where most of it's predominantly going to be coming from, is going to be taken away to the radiator, it means that the fan is only then left to cool the electrical circuitry, like the MOSFETs and the capacitors and the chokes and all that type of stuff. So you can actually end up running the fan much lower. So that's the first thing to kind of calm people down with. Now, when I do fit this, because I am going to fit it, I'm using the Corsair H75, which is one of the lower end ones in the range. Now, you can fit any of them to it. As long as it's a Corsair Hydro, it will fit. And we've got mounts here for the 1150 sockets stuff. And anyway, so we're going to fit the Corsair H75 to it. Now, you may wonder why I'm purposely fitting the H75. Well, the majority of cases are going to, if you're looking at something like this, I would have thought you're probably running like a H100i or the H105 in your roof anyway, and it can be difficult to have two 240 millimeter mounts. A lot of cases will have a 240 mount in the front, so in that case you could fit the H105 or the H100i in the front for your graphics card. If you are going to do that, then pretty much simply the best thing I can say to you is your graphics card will respond much better to water cooling than your CPU will. So you'll be able to, if you run the 240mm rads, you'll be able to run those fans absolutely, like practically not running at all, so low. We're going to run the H75 because it's only a thin radiator, it's one of the lower end models, and it will then basically show you almost like a worst case scenario. So we're going with the cheaper option rather than doing my usual thing, which would be to use a really expensive one. But then later on, even though we've used the cheaper one, you'll be able to see how much better the temperatures are. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to move straight in. We've got everything ready. Now, one of the things I will say as a plus point as well is the Corsair does come with the thermal pads fitted, and then you just lift the plastic off. A lot of the time you end up having to cut your own, and these are pre-stuck in the right places, which makes things a lot cheaper, makes things a lot easier. So, as I've said, predominantly it's designed for the reference cooler 290 or 290X. You will need this blower. But like I said, where it's not going to be cooling the main graphics core, this blower won't be. You'll be able to run it much slower, and you can go into your software on your PC and turn the fan down, maybe even set it to a manual speed. You could even just set up a custom fan profile. But anyway, what we need to do, what I have got here today is a selection of Phillips screwdrivers. I've got some thermal cleaner, the Tim cleaner. I've got 2 lots of thermal paste. Everyone asks me what I use. Now, I quite often get the MX4 from Arctic Cooling because they do it in bigger 30-gram tubes. You can get MX2 in an even bigger one. I think this is 20 and the MX2 comes in the 40. But the other one that I do use personally and rate quite a lot is the Noctua NTH1. And essentially, these are both non-conductive. and I don't use anything like Arctic Silver or anything like that on my graphics card or my CPU. I prefer to keep it non-conductive. I prefer to keep it just that little bit safe, even though I am very careful with what I use or what I do with it. And then some normal kitchen towel or kitchen roll, whatever it is. I don't know what you Americans would call it, but it's just some paper towel that you use in the kitchen, and this is just so that we can clean the core off later. Some people say to use isopropyl alcohol, some people say to use cotton wool balls and stuff. Now I've used cotton wool before and it just gets left everywhere, and if you get cheap cotton wool balls you can do the same. But what we need to do now is we need to just buzz all of the screws off of this so we can take the cooler off. So now we've got the screws off from around the outside. Make sure you keep them. We can then take the 4 screws off from the retention plate for the actual GPU itself. Okay, so we're all prepped and cleaned. We've got everything ready. We've got this all baxed up, and we can kind of, what we need to do now is take the take the fan out from this, and all you need to do is remove the screws from the outside and then remove the 3 screws from underneath the fan. We can do this really quickly, and then after that point, then we do not need this anymore. Like I said, you can get it thermal wrapped up, you can get it all cleaned up. I should have said that before, really, it's my apologies. And then we're ready to move on to the installation. I'm just going to whiz it off really quickly now. Now we've removed the stock fan, the stock blower fan, be sure to save the 3 screws that come with it because we need to reuse these. What we can do now is feed everything through, because we're going to fit this into our standard, or rather we're going to fit this into the Corsair. Okay, so we have the cooler fitted. It's all done and lovely underneath. Now what we need to do is fit our shroud to it, which we can do, and there are some tapered screws. They're flat-headed tapered screws so that we can screw the top on, and we screw this part on now. So now we've got that fitted. It's just a simple screw. You can see it's all in there, on there. Lovely, lovely. 4 screws, that's that done. Now we're ready to get the this mounted onto the actual PCB itself, but in the meantime I need to take some photos of this for the website. When it comes to mounting the this now assembled part to the graphics card itself, the most critical thing that you need to remember is to remove the backing film off of all of your thermal pads. Not doing so could end up with your memory, your video memory, and your electrical componentry, and by that I mean like your MOSFETs and stuff, running at severely high temperatures. Now this bit is absolutely crucial. Please don't forget this. If you think you have, go back and double check to make sure you haven't. Corsair have made this incredibly easy by having all your thermal pads pre-applied. Now once we have got everything ready, next thing we need to do is connect our fan header again. So we'll get that in, and then this pretty much leans on the top. Now I'm going to use the give me a bit of height, or I was hoping it was going to give me a bit of height. It's actually not high enough. I'll do it that way. And most of the screws go into the original graphics card mounting holes, and all you need to do is just go around and screw them in. You don't need to worry about this center just yet. I'm just going to nip a few of mine up so I've got a bit of now the end ones don't get used, pretty much most of the others do. It's quite easy, you've only got to look through to make sure that they are. Okay, so we've got it all fitted and everything's ready, we're all ready to rock and rumble. Now when it comes to the next section, we do have to fit some standoffs inside so that we can fit our cooler. Now if you've got a Corsair Hydro cooler with the round head, you need to use the longer standoffs, and if you've got one of the ones with the square head like the H100i or the H60, you use the shorter standoffs. So it's pretty simple. If it's round, you use the big ones. If it's square, use the short ones. Mine's obviously round, So I need to use the longer ones. So we just buzz those in. I'm just getting this in my head right to make sure that I know which way round I want to mount it, because obviously I need to get photos of this as well. That's probably going to be the easiest way. So I'm going to do it with the bottom being the PCI bracket, so that the Corsair logo will stand up. Then obviously you're not going to see it at a great deal. Don't forget to put some thermal paste down on this, non-conductive. I'm going to just do the squidgy method, so I'm going to put about a P in there, and then I'm just going to let the cooler do the rest as we squidge it down. Try not to move it about too much, and also one thing I would say is do it in opposite corners. I'm quite lucky in that I've got quite a good magnetic screwdriver, and I would say that that would be a great investment for any of you. They're not expensive at all, and the amount of times it gets me out of trouble is unbelievable. It can be just enough for you to be able to not have to hold on to a screw, but we've got ours all mounted now. You could mount it the other way round if you wanted to have, because the power cable for the fan, or rather, sorry, the power cable for the pump, which is what it is on this, is going to be near the top, but we can easily route that underneath so it can't be hidden, so it can be hidden. If you wanted to hide it even more, you could hide it underneath this bracket. So before you fitted it, it could have been wrapped underneath and it could come out right at the very bottom. It's probably a little bit too fiddly for me to try and get it there now. Okay, so I have pulled it through now. You can see it's actually underneath that tab, so it comes out right near the PCB, which will help us keep things extra tidy. You can plug these into 3-pin fan headers. I personally always favour going into a 12-pin Molex. You could have had it coming out the top, and you could have even routed it underneath all of this and then had it coming out near your PCI Express cable, so be able to put it into your case as well. If you want to get properly anal with your cabling, I've given you a couple of really easy options there. It might take a little while, but they're not difficult to do. Now all we need to do is get this into a rig so that we can start testing. Okay then, so we've got it all fitted in our graphics card test 760. We did it this way round so that the logo was a bit easier for filming, but if you were to rotate it ever so slightly, like round 90 degrees, you'd have the hoses on the outside, which would make things much easier to fit. I suppose really in hindsight, I probably should have done it that way, and like I said, it would have made fitting to the front easier. But at least you can know that if you want it to look that well, like maybe if you've got a mirror underneath your graphics cards or something, then the hoses will still fit fine. Again, don't forget, we've used the H75 because it's one of the lower models, so we're going to get a worst case scenario for the graphics card performance and then the price and all that kind of stuff, so you can get an idea there. Obviously you can see we are still running, well you could see if I move my hand out of the way, we are running the stock fan, and that's as it's designed to be as well. It does give it a kind of a familiar feel. I would say though that seeing it fitted like this, if you did have the hoses on the outside, it might have been nice if Corsair had then enclosed the rest of it. We could have had like a section where you could have seen the logo, or we could have just had it closed off completely and just made it look like a Corsair graphics card or something. But as you can see, it does look all nice. The design does look good down the side, and if we bring it all in nice, I think it does work. This bit down the side does look nicer, and the fact that we've got the original fan on there and enclosed, it does make it look a lot nicer for me personally than the other versions that are available from other manufacturers. We've just got a fan nailed on there. One of them uses a 92mm fan, which obviously kind of limits things. The VRM cooling really wasn't very good on that, and the kind of just like nailed to the side fan idea, I personally didn't like, because it did make it look instantly dated. And I think this is kind of a good kind of a place to stop in the middle. It's a nice kind of compromise, keeps a standard E kind of look, The fan doesn't look out of place yet. We still get the performance of the actual water block. Talking of performance, so this is our first batch of tests, and we've got the Valley icon there just so you can see that what we run it at. 2560 by 1440, 8 times anti-aliasing. Now the reason why we run this is because this is how we do the temperature testing on all of our graphics cards. On the left hand side GPU-Z, we've set the core clock, memory clock, GPU temperature, fan speed, and then the 2 VRM temperatures to save the maximum temperatures that they got to. So we can see that the fan speed went up to 23%. That was just left on auto, but the GPU temperature stayed at 51 degrees. Now if this was the standard cooler with the normal block that we replaced, that would have been around 90 to 95 degrees on that GPU core. So you can easily say there that you've dropped a good 40 degrees Celsius. Don't forget that that is including the fact that we're only using the H75, which is one of the lower end models of this, which makes the price to performance ratio very good. And the reason why the performance drop is so massive is because water cooling or graphics cards do really respond well to water cooling of any nature. Now when we get down the bottom, there are people going to be harping on about the 85 degrees Celsius for the VRM temperatures. Now the VRMs are actually designed to be able to run at you know, around 120 degrees. So the fact that these are on 85 is actually really good. Now one of the things I will say is, even if we were to turn the fans up manually, and this is at 35%, you can see that we've only knocked about 4 degrees off of the VRM temperatures. It's gone down to 77, and if we turn it up to 50%, they only go down to 70. Now it's not because of the bracket that's on the HG10, because it cools it better, if anything else, than the standard VRM cooling. It's more the fact that they are very difficult to cool because of the fan orientation. But one thing I will say is this is actually dramatically better than the other aftermarket options that are out there, because they didn't have any heat sinks on the VRMs whatsoever. So what I would probably do personally is go for a mixture of the two. You can set up a custom fan profile, but what I would personally say to you to do is probably limit your fan speed to about, and I do mean around and about, the kind of 30 to 35% mark at an absolute top end, because it keeps it quite quiet and unaudible. Then you're probably going to find it's going to be difficult for you to be able to set your fan speed linked to the VRM temperatures. So what I would generally say to do is set your fan profile up just to spin those VRM temperatures once your GPU core gets to about 40 degrees really, and then you'll be well away. Okay then guys, so moving on to the conclusion, and the award to start off with is the OC3D Gold Award. Now I didn't review the original NZXT variant of this. Now the price for the other one and this one are actually coming in at exactly the same price. I actually personally prefer this design, or the way they've gone about this one ever so slightly. I wasn't a fan of just like the simple like 92mm fan mount, just kind of rammed on the top. Innovation Award, yes. Gold Award, I wasn't particularly sure. I still think that the $29.99 for the bracket itself is relatively expensive, but the performance gains that you get once you strap, say something like the H75, which is going to cost you around the £65 mark in the UK, so £65 GBP. As you can see, the actual graphics core responds really well to water cooling, so much better than air cooling. Yomping 40 degrees off, it did that so easily. You might, obviously, if we didn't run it at 100% fan on the H75, but if you were to turn your fan down, you can get it to almost inaudible levels around the 60 to 65 degree mark, which means this is going to open up the realms of you being able to build yourself an immensely quiet PC Another reason why this is a massive thing for this is the 290X, and they are incredibly hot and they are incredibly power hungry, and it's that power hungry bit that I do need to stress. And it's an also reason why the VRMs, or at least that first VRM, is always going to be quite warm. If you put massive heat sinks on it and then have a direct fan on it, you may be able to tame those temps a little bit more, but these are lower VRM temps than you would have got with the standard card, or at least with our standard card, because I have tested this previously. This is the 290X I've had since launch. So yes, you know, for those of you out there, just calm your jets. Yes, 85 degrees compared to the actual core temperature is going to be a lot warmer, but in the sense of VRM temperatures overall, the only way you're ever really going to get these temperatures much lower is going to be dedicated water cooling with a full cover block. And even then, I think you'll be surprised at just how warm these little things can get. And it's mainly because of the load that's being put on them, and where they are so small, it's very difficult for you to be able to dissipate that heat quick enough for the temperatures to be able to drop significantly. So yes, they're warm, but they're better. It's much better than it was. But to be honest with you, the difference in the actual core temperatures coming down that much is unbelievable. And don't forget, we were getting around the kind of around the 80 degree marks on those VRMs with the fan just sat at its idle rate, really. You can modify your fan profile settings or anything, but I personally favoured around the 30% mark. Fix it there and it run fine. Obviously, one of the things that we have said is you can see that the huge drop in temperatures that we've had. So those of you out there instantly thinking, oh, I'm going to go and buy a H105 to put on my 290X. I'll be perfectly honest with you, peeps. If you did that, you might get your temperatures down to maybe 45 degrees at an absolute kind of threshold, and that will put you on par with around the kind of 40 to 45 degree temperatures that you may be getting with a custom water block. I personally think you're probably missing the point with that. The only reason why I would go up to a thicker or a bigger radiator with one of these on one of the AIOs would be to practically not have the fans running at all. Running the H75 as we had, I would find it for the temperatures that we got an acceptable level for gaming. But like I said, if you don't mind 60 degrees, which is still going to be lower than any custom air-cooled card out there, you're going to have it is, you know, almost a silent system. So it obviously Corsair have kind of taken a different take on a product that was already out there. But then again, you could say that with power supplies, coolers, AIO coolers, everyone goes and does their own things. It's not a copycat thing. I personally really do favour that stock fan idea. Now, one of the things I have learned, and it was yesterday, Corsair are going to be bringing out their own blower fan, and that's so that reference PCB cards that are out there with, so they've got a reference PCB, but they've got custom coolers. You'll be able to buy the blower fan, so you can fit it to this. So those of you out there that haven't got that red blower fan on your card, but you have got a custom PCB, will be able to run this unit. I hope that they do a black one, to be honest with you, because I think it would look really nice in there if it was just a black blower fan, and it would kind of make it all kind of a little bit more understated and everything as well. So there are going to be a lot, you know, there are going to be little changes that can be made to make these available for a much wider audience, which is obviously always going to be a good thing. And obviously they're going straight in with the 290 and the 290X, which I personally think is quite a good move, because they're the really hot cookies that a lot of people out there that are going to want to do it. I have shown you that you can run these with a 120mm fan. If you were to rotate the cooler round slightly, you could easily have a pair of these in crossfire with your fans in the front as well. A lot of cases have got 220mm fans in the front, so, and you can still have really good temperatures then. Only thing that may kind of differ a little bit is if you did run them in crossfire, your VRM temperatures may go up because of lack of airflow, but that's going to be no different than if you've already got your graphics cards in crossfire already. I think all it will mean is that you're going to have a much better gaming experience because your fans won't be as high. So it's all positives when you look at it from the right angle. If you want to look at, you know, really finicky points and go on about it, then, you know, everyone's going to find a problem with it. But if you take it from the broader perspective and compare it to things fairly, you'll see that it's actually quite a good thing, which is why we gave it the gold. So $29.99, I personally wouldn't say that you really need anything more than something like the H75. You've got the H60 out there as well, if you want to go for one of those square top ones. They're both the same sort of radiator size. And then obviously you can customize them with the Corsair SP120 or SP120 LED fans if you want to make it all match the rest of your system. It really does open a whole broader range to doing stuff. I would also say for the customizers out there that this would look lovely custom painted on the sides as well. So maybe give that a look. But for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with the Corsair HG10 custom water cooling bracket that you can mount your old AIOs and all that type of stuff to out. Ding!